Welcome to Bet On It. I am Kelly Stewart, joined by Marco D'Angelo and Gianni Corrales. College football week 9. I am just floored that we're already here, you guys, but we've got a big game in the Big Ten on deck. Noon Eastern, Fox, Michigan at Michigan State. I'm going to be really excited for this one. I haven't decided quite how I'm going to bet this one. Of course, I'm leaning towards that underdog in Sparty. There is one rogue 4.5 left on the WagerTalk odds screen. I will say that total 51.5. So this one's been getting bet up early. Marco, I'm going to go to you first. What are your thoughts on the rivalry here in Michigan? I know that one side likes to call the other side little brother, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, definitely, this is one of those ones where it's a bigger rivalry for Michigan State because we know Michigan's rivalry is Ohio State. And I don't know why they've been getting the snot kicked out of them for years by Ohio State. But Michigan State, this is the one they circle on their calendar every year. And when was the last time that this game had, two top 10, teams doing battle? It's been a long time since they've both been significant at the same time. So obviously it does scream to look at maybe the primetime home dog. I don't know, 12 noon, not exactly prime time, but, college football. We got to have those noon starts on the East Coast. And, you don't get the crowd as jacked up as you would for a night game or a later afternoon game when they've been out there in the parking lot all afternoon having a few adult beverages as people tend to do. And I'm sure there'll be some adult beverages flowing in a couple of weeks when we're in Pittsburgh in the parking lot before the game. But this is a spot where, I'm not a big fan of Coach Harbaugh, at least the college version of Coach Harbaugh, but I'm going to have to lean to him in this one. And what I'm looking at is obviously both teams are undefeated, so it's kind of hard to fault either team. But when you dig a little bit deeper to the schedule, I think Michigan's had some more significant games and have delivered the goods. Early in the season, a game that you were at, Kelly, a lot of people thought Washington was going to go in there and beat Michigan. Michigan took care of business rather handily. Then they had the big road game at Wisconsin. We all said, hey, that was going to be the first true test. They're going on the road after they opened up with, 5 in a row at home and went to Wisconsin. They got the job done there. Followed that up with a horrible scheduling spot, having to go to Nebraska the very next week. And I was on Nebraska in that game, full disclosure, and Nebraska did everything but win that game. They end up losing by 3 late. So Michigan has kept their heads screwed on straight, where Michigan State, although they're undefeated, they have had a couple scares. And I go back to the one in particular, the Nebraska game when they faced Nebraska. That was a horrible spot for Nebraska. They were coming off Oklahoma the week before, where they had that big rivalry game. They hadn't played in it was the 50-year anniversary of the big game and all the other things that they had with that. And they almost beat Oklahoma in Oklahoma, and they had to go to Michigan State the very next week. And although Michigan State won that game, they only won it by 3. It was a fumble by Nebraska that set them up for the win to get it 23-20. I'm going to go Michigan here. I think they're the better team. I think they've got the better defense. Quarterback issue, never a fan of the Michigan quarterbacks, but really, what has the Michigan State quarterback done? I'll take Michigan, call it 28-20. I don't know that this gets to my card as far as clients go, be honest with that, but it'll be a fun game to watch.
VR, Marco touched on something that is really kind of harping on me here. How do I put this nicely? I don't want to bag on Jim Harbaugh, but we know what he is and what he isn't. This year may be an anomaly, but he is still just 1-8 straight up on the road versus undefeated opponents. And Michigan State 11-2 against the spread in the last 13 meetings. Again, I might not get to the window here, but can we really trust Harbaugh to go get this done in East Lansing?
Personally, I haven't bet this game, and I think if you got out ahead of the betting market and you got down in DraftKings that put out an early line of 2.5 on this game, and you bet Michigan at 2.5 or -3, you got a good bet in your pocket. Sit back, enjoy the game. If you want to, try to middle it If the line goes up higher, take a shot. Who knows? Maybe a close game. But with all that said, I just don't see where you could find value and place a plus EV bet on this game where it's sitting at 4. I think we'd be guessing. Again, as far as the Harbaugh, I mean, how do you quantify that? And is it baked into the cake? And we know with Michigan, it's everything that at least they talked about coming into the season has played out. You know, they had all those players only meetings and they're going to be held accountable and it's not going to be all in the coach. And they did everything right off the field. And so far, looking at the season, it's going as planned. So you can't knock anything that Michigan's done. Couple that with the fact that they've outperformed the betting market every single week, except when they were 20 point favorites against Rutgers. And they're as impressive as it comes as far as this season goes. If you've been betting Michigan, like you're happy. There's no reason that you're going to fade Michigan now if you've been betting them. But on the flip side, you're looking at a Michigan State team that's done the exact same thing. Won every game, covered every game. Both teams were underdogs once or twice this year. They both won the game outright. So there's not all that much to find an edge, except for the fact one team's getting points, getting those 4 now. And it seems a little bit attractive. The only problem I have is that their metrics are so equal. If you look at yards per play, yards per rush, yards per pass, offense, defense, QBRs, everything is almost exact between these two teams. Except the only different metric that I found that's predictable, at least a tad bit, is penalties, and where Michigan appears to be the much more disciplined team, and Michigan State seems to be undisciplined. They have above average penalties per game, above average penalty yards per game. That to me seems like a team that, again, has those discipline issues. And if it's a close game, I much rather be on the side of the more disciplined side, especially when all the metrics add up. But again, with all that said, the spread becomes the great equalizer. And now where it sits at 4, I just don't think there's any value at all. We have to give a play for the show. I bet Michigan because I do believe they're the better team. That's why they're given 4 points. And I think that's where the equalizer comes in. And bottom line, I always say every game, even though there's going to be a winner of every game, of every fight, there's not necessarily a right side. And I think Michigan, if you look at the money line around 185 to 200, I think that's on point. I think if they play this game 3 times, Michigan beats them straight up 2 out of 3. But again, will they cover? That's the different story because 4 points matter. 3 is a key number. And with the metrics this close, it's a coin flip. And that's what I'm saying. At minus 110, I'm not going to flip a coin, especially when there's so many other betting opportunities. If you're betting for profit, then you only bet those games that make sense. You don't make sense out of every game. And for me, it's one of those where enjoy it or bet for action. And I just don't bet for action.
I'm with you, VR. We got to bet to make some money. And look, I'm with you guys. This is an early kick game here on the West Coast. This looks like one of those exciting ones you want to watch while you're sweating out those early bets. Next
maybe a second half, maybe something pops up in the second half or something like that, or live bet. But again, if the line's right, you don't have to get involved all the time.
No, I think you're right. I think that's kind of the difference between an action junkie, a degenerate, if you will, and people that are doing this to actually make a profit. So good stuff from both guys. We're going to kick it over to Ralph Michaels for some TNA. There he is, the man with the pen. Before we get started, Ralph, I'd like to say thank you because I had no idea that the Rice Owls were going to make my card last week, but thank you to you. And guess what a loser I am? I didn't sprinkle a single dollar on that money line. It pays to listen to the man with the pen, Mr. Ralph Michaels. So thank you, Ralph. Ralph, we're going to get started here. As always, we're answering questions on Twitter. I forgot to write down whose Twitter question this was today in pure Kelly fashion. That is what I do. I got too much going on. But if you guys have a question for Ralph, feel free to tweet him at CalSportsLV.
Kelly, let's mention that system we talked about, favorites of 20 or more with a total of 46 or less, have gone 3-0 the last couple weeks. I did not bet the Rice Owls either on the money line, but and it makes total sense when you're getting almost half of what the total is. No teams apply to that system this week, but do make sure you pay attention to the future. Guys, the first two charts I'm going to show you are questions that you basically asked. And there's many times that we go through charts and there's wow numbers and, I give you stuff that's bettable. And there's times where there's just numbers that at least you know the answer, so you're not having a question moving forward. And a question from a viewer or a Twitter follower, again, at Cal Sports LV, reach out to me and ask any questions to be on Bet On It. If we could get to it, we certainly will. But he wanted to know how teams at home do between the threes. That means you're a -3 favorite up to a +3 dog. So basically a pick'em game. So if we could see chart number 1, I went since 2016. And on the bottom in black, you see that home teams between the threes are 49.8%, Kel. Basically break even. So I had to take it a step further and look month by month. Is there any advantage early or late? We do see in September that home teams between the threes covered 46%, and in October they covered 53%. But I wanted to go a little further and look at what a home team between the threes does off a loss, does off a win, off both teams off a loss, off both teams off a win, and one off a win and one off a loss. I will put this on Twitter later today so you can dive a little deeper. The two numbers, again, no wow numbers, but when both teams are off a loss, the home team with the line between the threes is covered 54.3%. And if a home team is off a loss and a road team is off a win, look at that. The team with the momentum, the road team, has covered 55.7%, meaning the home team, a 44.3% fade team. So again, looking at homes between the threes, not wow numbers, but at least you now know the answers.
I love this kind of stuff, Ralph, because in no way would I ever take the time to look this up, but you're always the man with the data points. What else have you dug up for us this week?
Well, we do have some wow numbers here. And guys, if you could put up chart number 2. This was a question, but this is also just sound handicapping, because how often do we hear, oh, teams are off a big upset loss, they're going to bounce back. And what happens if teams are a win? So I broke down the college football numbers. Teams that are off a loss as a favorite of 14 points or more. And what happens on the flip side? Teams that are off a straight up win, like the Rice Owls, as a dog of 14 or more. Well, let's first look at those favorites, Kelly. When a team is off a loss as a favorite of 14 points or more, obviously a pretty substantial subset, look at the month by month. If they are on the road in September off a loss, they've covered 55%. If they're at home in September off a loss, 56%. October, 55% on the road, 58% at home. But take a look at November and remember that as we move forward. If you're off a big loss and you're playing in November and you're at home, you have only covered 36%. My reasoning behind that, what happens in November? Your rivalry games. You're off a big loss. This opponent you're now playing is a rival, giving all the momentum. So early in the season, playing a team off a big upset loss is a positive. In November, it's been a negative. And how about teams off an upset win like Rice? Take a look when those teams are at home. 44% in September, 44% in October, 44% in November. You can't be more consistent than that. But you see when those teams like Rice off an upset win that are on the road this week, they've covered 63% in September, 53% in October, and 52 in November. So a couple things to think about as we move forward. And again, at Cal Sports LV, I will tweet out both of these charts for you guys to study them in a little more detail after the show.
Ralph, now not only the guy with the pin, the guy with all the charts. You guys can check Ralph's Twitter page for all of these. I'm going to try to get him up over on the WagerTalk page as well. Ralph, I know you got a couple quick hitters for us before we let you go.
Well, we talked about teams off buys a couple weeks ago here on this segment, and there's a specific situation I want to mention. Single-digit away favorites. So you're an away favorite up to 9 off a bye. It means you're the better team. It means you're rested. But guess what? In college football since 2014, single-digit away favorites off a bye, only 30, 45, and 1 against the spread. That's 40%, a 60% fade. The teams to fade this week in that situation, Rutgers and Boise. That means the play-ons are Illinois and Colorado State. 2 more real quick. Kel, I took this one from Mark Lawrence in his Playbook newsletter. Big game in the Big Ten. A great system. I wish it was mine that I thought of, but I didn't. Game 6 on in college football. So you've gone through September. You've gone through most of October. You're still undefeated. When you have 2 undefeated teams that have played at least 6 games, the dog, 66% against the spread. That applies to Michigan State. And one last one. Cal, we've seen some incredibly low totals the past couple weeks. Well, how about the total of 37.5 with Wisconsin and Iowa? So I looked at college football totals since 2014 with totals of 40 or less. You know, we see totals of 80 when Ole Miss plays, but when there's totals of 40 or less, do they go over or under? 60% to the under. When you have those totals in the 30s, 20 overs, 30 unders, so 60% of those low totals have gone under. And listen to this. If you have a total of 37.5 or less, 14 unders, and only 5 overs. There's times Vegas doesn't have to make a total as low as it needs to be because so many people just tend to bet the overs when you have these low numbers. They're low for a reason. They've shown over the last 6 years they tend to go under. And just FYI, the lowest total in college football since 2014 was Vanderbilt and Missouri in 2015. That total was under 34 points. So again, keep your eye on Wisconsin, Iowa this week. That total 37.5. The numbers say that will go under again.
Those totals are low for a reason, Ralph. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, those unders, in the NFL Bet On It segment. So make sure you guys head over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel and check out that show as well. Thank you to Ralph at Cal Sports LV. If you're not already following, you are missing out. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we return, it's time for some barking dogs.
Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of bettor, from as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks. Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com. All daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including $40 5% best bets. As an added bonus, all new users will receive $25 in WagerBucks credited to their accounts, available for immediate use after their initial $9 Monday purchase. So make sure to take advantage of $9 Mondays at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Bet On It. I hope you guys enjoyed that last segment. Now it's time for my favorite segment. That, of course, is those barking dogs. Each and every week, we're looking for those pups that have a shot to win outright. Marco, you're up first.
All right, Kelly, we're going to go to a dog that, honestly, I could have used this in the next segment as well, because I feel that this has all the makings of a trap game. You look at this one and you see North Carolina at Notre Dame. You see Notre Dame at home minus 3.5 to an ACC team that is not undefeated or anything like that. They're just 4-3, and they're only laying 3 and a hook. Come on. This is Notre Dame. This is South Bend. How inviting does that look? They're begging you to bet Notre Dame in this game. And just last week, although, actual power rating wise, North Carolina is a better team than Southern Cal, but for name recognition, they were given 7.5 last week to Southern Cal and won in covered. And we know that this is a recency bias for people. They saw Notre Dame last week cover. They're going to be on them again this week. Not me. I love North Carolina in this game. And I'm telling you, they're going to get that Notre Dame pass defense exposed in this game. North Carolina can move the football. They can run the football and they can throw the football. And they're going to put pressure on Notre Dame's secondary in this game. I think this is going to be one of those barn burner games where it could be the team with the ball last wins the game. And in a game like that, I want the points. I'm going to look to North Carolina to win this one 38-34. North Carolina is one of those college football teams. You hear me talk about it a lot, a 200 club member. What is that? That's a team that can run and throw the football for 200 or more yards per game. That puts lots of pressure on defensive coordinators because what do you take away? If you stack the run, they're going to throw the ball on you. If you drop back in coverage, they're going to run it up your gut. I'll take North Carolina and look for the outright win. As I said, 38-34.
Marco, I am with you on the Tar Heels. They made my long list. I'm not sure if they're going to make my parlay. Not quite barking enough for me. I usually like those touchdown dogs. VR, before we got started here, you said, they're going to love my barking dog today. I cannot wait to hear who it is.
We're going to Conference USA, I believe. Is that over there in Old Dominion? Is that the CUSA? Yep. Old Dominion Monarchs gave them out +6 as a 4% play. What's weird is I just looked now at the line and it's 4.5. So I know on the show, I don't know if the graphic probably has 6 because it was 6 this morning even. But it's down to 4.5. So you could grade me at 4.5. That's just fine. But now you know what my guys pay me for. With all that said, bottom line is this. You're looking at two teams that aren't all that attractive. But with that said, La Tech really has no business being favored by this many points on the road. In fact, they haven't won a single road game all season. More importantly, Old Dominion's going to have success running the football. And as long as you could do that as an underdog, you could keep the game close. That's where they've had a problem is they've had to pass to play catch up. That's not going to happen against La Tech. As long as they run the ball successfully and you have a La Tech defense that allows 4.3 yards per rush, they're going to be just fine. And the one thing that Old Dominion's done when they played home, they've given you effort every single game. They're 1-2 there, but they played hard. They covered it, getting 13 against Buffalo there. They even played hard against Western Kentucky till that game got away from them late. And I think that's why we're getting this many points here. But as you see, wise guys agree. They steamed it. I got it at 6. If you agree with me, you're getting it at 4.5. Hopefully it don't land 5 if you do. But that's the pick for the dog this week. Let's go Old Dominion.
I'm with you. La Tech last week. What a disappointing performance. Now turn around and lay all those points on the road. Let's see if we can't cash that Old Dominion money line. Marco, I'm going to kick it back to you. I closed the deli this week. I just went ahead and did it myself because you text me at 1 p.m. The Illinois game is in its umpteenth overtime, and you're like, you know what? We should have used Illinois in the sandwich game. Well, guess what, Marco? That's just great. I appreciate those texts after the fact. I overlooked the scheduling in there as well. Do I think I would have got to the window on Illinois money line? Absolutely not. So this week in college football, we have a trap game.
Yes, Kelly, we do have a trap game, and it is involving that Illinois team that your people are going to look at this game, Kelly, and what they're going to see is they're going to look at Rutgers and say, here's a team that's lost 4 games in a row. They've scored 13, 13, 13, and 7 points. And then they're going to look at Illinois and say, hey, here's Illinois, won 2 of their last 3. But last week, that thrilling 9 overtime game. Well, first of all, let me have a 10-second rant on these overtimes. it's total bullshit that after the second overtime, they got to go for the 2-point conversion. This becomes a skills competition. It's not an overtime, okay? It's the most stupidest rule in college football. I hate it, all right? And the bad part is it took those two teams 7 tries before somebody could gain 3 yards on a 2-point conversion to finally end that misery of a game between Illinois and Penn State last week. Nonetheless, that was a monster win for Illinois. And as I said, people are going to look at Rutgers in that 4-game losing streak. Well, here's the thing. The first 3 losses in that losing streak for Rutgers were to Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. I think that's the who's who of the Big Ten right now. And last week, they were dropping way down in class, but they were on the road at Northwestern. And I know a lot of people were betting them against Northwestern because they were dropping down so far in class. Well, they had the old flat spot after all those big games in a row. Now this is where they come in hungry off that loss, and they're going to be looking at an Illinois team that I think's fat and sassy. And they've got a new head coach there this year that if you look after their first 2 wins of the season, what they do, they lost the very next week. And one of them was in an ugly fashion. They lost to Texas San Antonio. We were on them in that game. And after the other win, they got blanked 24-0 against Wisconsin. I'll go ahead and take Rutgers in this one. This is my trap game. And just look at it. Why is Rutgers favorite? They've lost 4 in a row. Illinois just knocked off Penn State. Come on, people. The lines makers sometimes point you in the right direction if you're smart enough to pay attention. Let's go, Rutgers.
I would agree with that. Or on the flip side, they try to trap you into betting the wrong side. I remember when our good friend Brian Leonard told me that the bookmakers don't trap you, and I text our other good friend John Murray, and he wrote back no comment. And that is because they absolutely do. VR is never one to get trapped into a bad line. He's got all the information at the tips of his fingers. All he's got to do is log in and look at some of the back ends. And boy, does he give us gold each and every week in the Steam segment.
We're getting involved early in the week this time, Kelly, and we're getting there on prime time. Now, I bet this one a little early at plus 19 or 18.5 at worst, but there's 17.5s out there. Even see 18 at South Point, and public money will come in on Coastal Carolina, probably drive the line back up. I really like Troy in this spot. Again, one thing I've done real well living out here in Vegas over 20 years is learn from the people around me that I respect. And one of those guys is Marco, the reason I'm on this show with him. And the one factor that he's pointed out to me a long time ago is that dream crusher game where a team has a goal before the season or something's going right or it's a record, something along those lines. And then the wheels come off. They lose that inevitable game where that dream gets crushed. And he called it the dream crusher. So I need to give him credit for it because that's what jumped out first. That Coastal Carolina, although they don't come into the season expecting to get to the playoffs and compete for a national championship, the fact that they were undefeated, the fact that they were being talked about, the fact that people were actually willing to rank them and compare what the point spread would be if they played Team A or Team B tells me that losing as favorites by a field goal to Appalachian State is as much of a dream crusher as you can get. And now on the flip side, you come with Troy. And the one thing from Troy is they can play some defense. Their offense isn't going to get you excited, but at least on the defensive side of the ball, they play pretty good. I mean, they hold teams to only, 286 yards per game. Again, not a predictive analytic, but still, it pops off Detroit. You got to look at it. It's pretty impressive. And as long as they don't allow Coastal Carolina to light up that scoreboard, they're going to be able to cover this game. And with a total of 51.5, 52 opener, 52.5, and coming down, it looks to me like the market doesn't expect Coastal Carolina to put up 40-plus points. So it just sets up nicely. I think I'm getting more points than I should, win or lose, and that's the best you could ever hope for. Troy Steam plus 17.5.
We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, it's time for Best Bets.
Like our videos, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification button so you'll always be the first to know when there's new content available.
Welcome back to Bet On It. It is now time for Best Bets, and I don't feel amazing about this best bet, probably because I've bid on and against this team several times this year. Miami of Florida was the reason why I did not cash my last 3-team moneyline parlay. And here I am again, making a case for this team to go in to Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett, everybody's ready to give him the Heisman after knocking off a crappy offensively inept Clemson team last week. I will say this, I got to give a little credit to VR because his push on Monday when he sprinkled some of those gold nuggets, he said, look, we bet Miami here. I'm looking at this one, and this is just too many points for the Pitt Panthers. Manny Diaz, I think you owe me this one. Can you just please do me one solid this year? Go into Pittsburgh and make this game respectable. I do believe that they will. Last week, whether people want to believe it or not, was a big turning point for Pat Narduzzi's team. This year, they've looked great. They no longer just kick pointless field goals down 3 scores. That being said, I think they're just a touch overvalued here. Look, this Hurricanes team has absolutely owned this series. 21-3 straight up. Now, again, I understand this is a different year, but I think Pittsburgh's feeling a little fat and sassy. Yep, Johnny from Twitter. I stole that one from Marco just for you. I am taking the Miami Hurricanes plus 9.5. Marco has a word on this game before he gives out his best bet.
Yeah, Kelly. Well, you know what? VR drops gold for you guys. I'm going to drop a little silver, okay? I'll give you a little added one here on this game. This was a runner-up for my best bet, but not the game. I was in the total in this one, and I'll tell you why. Pitt, you hit the nail on the head. This was a monster game last week for Pitt. It was the biggest win in the Pat Narduzzi since he's come there, and they've set themselves up for a big run, but they're still on the outside looking in, ranked, I think, 17th, I believe. This is a team that needs style points. So they are going to want to keep scoring, and they've got a prolific offense led by Kenny Pickett. And as you said, all of a sudden it's fashionable to be talking Kenny Pickett. An outside chance at the Heisman. Boy, where did I hear that last week? Before last week's game. Some wise guy I know, but I like the game to go over. And because Pitt, I do expect a letdown from the defensive side of the ball, they're going to give up points to Miami. And Pitt really hasn't faced a good passing team like Miami. Miami can score in a hurry. And for Pitt, they're going to want to keep the foot on the gas for 2 reasons. As I said, they need style points. And 2, now that there's talk about Kenny Pickett, they're going to want to pad his stats anytime they can to make that run at the Heisman. So I like the over in that game, along with your side, Kelly, Miami. I do agree with the side on Miami. I think it'll be one of those barn burner games. And Pitt, if they're not careful, could have that letdown after the big Clemson win. Now on to the one that we did make it as our best bet, and that is Kentucky at Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Mississippi State here. Now, this is not quite the dream crusher game. Yes, Kentucky lost their first game of the season last time out. It was 2 weeks ago. They've had a week to sulk about it. But I'll give you an example how that didn't work for a certain team. But as far as Kentucky goes, coming into the season, they knew they weren't going to be undefeated. So for them, I don't think it is quite of a dream crusher like in VR's game with Coastal Carolina, which I would 100% agree with. But I'm looking at this from 2 points. Mississippi State's had this game circled since last year. I know we overuse the term revenge, but when you're a team that's as offensive-minded as Mississippi State is with that Mike Leach offense, and you score 2 points in your game last year, you lose 24-2, oh, you're going to remember that game. Trust me. You had 6 interceptions in that game. Do you know, we talk about it all the time. If you're -2 in turnovers, you're going to lose more games than you win. If you're -3, you're hardly ever going to win. -4, -5, -6. Yeah, you're going to get crushed. But they really only lost by 3 touchdowns in a game that they were -6 in turnovers. They want this one. And as far as Kentucky off that first loss and having the week to regroup, well, Penn State was in that same situation last week. They had 2 weeks to prepare for that offensive show they put on against Illinois last week. I'm going to go ahead and take Mississippi State. I think the wrong team is favored here. Too many people are looking at what Kentucky did prior to the Georgia game and automatically giving them a pass because they lost to Georgia, and Georgia is the number 1 team in the country. But I'm going to say this. They've only played 2 road games this year. Yeah, we're this deep into the season, and they've only had 2 road games. The one at Georgia last week and earlier in the season at South Carolina. South Carolina is not that good. They only won that game 16-10. I'll go ahead and take Mississippi State for my best bet. Let's call it 28-17, Mississippi State.
Marco, I'm with you. I will be on the Bulldogs as well. VR, who is your best bet for week 9? And can you give us a little bit of that gold?
Yeah, before I get to the best bet, I'm going to share that gold. And forgive me, this is what I was doing. It's 12:41 here, Pacific time in Vegas. The markets back east close in 20 minutes. And this is as best gold as you could get. We'll get to football in a second. But right now, GBTC, that's right, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is being offered at 15% discount. Yes, the premium is 15% discounted to what a Bitcoin is worth right now. So jump on that. They will be approved for the first real ETF within 6 months to a year. And just go that way. I got like 20 minutes, so forgive me. That's what I was doing. Back to football. Here's some gold for you. College football. Bet Colorado State +3, Wyoming +3, and there's a buy order on Washington at +3. As you can see, some key numbers. And there's 2 first-round golf matchups I'll share. Now, the golf hasn't been winning the last 2 weeks. Again, golf, you see how these lines move. It's because they crush. But I tell you when I win, I tell you when I lose. And they have not been crushing. That's why subscribers didn't get golf this week. But the groups bet in first round Bermuda Championship, both of these, 7150, the last name Theegala. That's Figala, -125. And the second bet number, 7129, D Willett, Willett, -165. And Willett's up against McDowell. And Thigala is up against, again, sorry guys, I'm pressing this as I look at the ticket. Daytree against Daytree. Now to my best bet, and this is what matters. I'm giving you Nebraska. Now I know you're going to look at that betting line and say, "Hey, how are you giving me Nebraska? You already steamed it. It was 6.5. You gave it to your subscribers at 7. It's now 7.5. That's a key number. Why should we bet it? Because the highly probable it goes to 8 before it goes back down to 7. It's that sharp. And here's why. Purdue's just too one-dimensional. They throw the football. They can't run the football. And Nebraska's going to be just fine with that. In fact, that's exactly what Nebraska needs and why they are a touchdown favorite in this matchup. You can't rush for 2.4 yards per attempt and win a lot of football games. And that's been Purdue's problem. The fact they're 4-3 is so surprising. When you're one-dimensional, it's surprising you're even above 500. But again, I really like Nebraska in this spot. It is up over a touchdown. But again, Purdue's going to be forced to just throw the football. That's why they're well above average in interceptions. The NCAA average is 0.8 interceptions per game. They're almost 2x that compared to Nebraska, which is actually 50% below the college average in those turnovers. That's the kind of favorite I want to back. So again, the betting syndicates bet it. When I dug into the analytics that I look at to confirm it, and as far as the matchup and line movement, prices and all that, it all lines up to laying 7.5, no problem at all. Give me Nebraska. Best bet.
I love Nebraska as well. Ever since VR, as he mentioned, gave it out on Monday's show. That is why it's going to be his best bet. He said early on, this is the play. I got Nebraska -7. It's up to 7.5. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, it's time for the recap.
Sign up for the free WagerTalk text club to gain access to free plays and exclusive discounts. Just text WagerTalk to 33222 to sign up and get a $10 coupon to use on WagerTalk.com.
Okay, we know that you might be sick of hearing about spooky good deals this Halloween weekend, but we've chosen this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to bring back one of our most popular specials. The WagerTalk Fill Your Cart is back. This Friday, October 29th, Saturday, October 30th, and Sunday, October 31st, you will get a 31% discount on everything you fit into your cart. Whether it's a daily package, a one-day all access, a 3, 7, or 30 package, a full season of college hoops, or a full 12 months from your favorite handicapper, you will save 31% with coupon Halloween31. You can fill your goodie bag as many times as you want until the clock strikes midnight on Sunday. Finish off October with this ghostly good deal and fill your cart wisely.
Welcome back to Bet On. It's time for the recap. If you missed VR's gold, you better scroll back and see if you can't find it. My best bet, Miami, plus 9.5. Marco's best bet, Mississippi State, plus 1.5. VR's best bet, Nebraska, minus 7.5. That's right, I'm going backwards this week. Wanted to mix it up for everybody. Trap game is going to be Rutgers. Marco says, do not fall for the Illinois team catching points after last week's upset of Penn State. Steam game is a Thursday night game. Was Troy plus 18.5 down to 17.5. VR says, jump on that train. For Barking Dogs, we've got Old Dominion plus 4.5 from Gianni and North Carolina plus 3.5 at Notre Dame for Marco. Big game. Guys say, hey, look, we like Michigan minus 4 over Michigan State, but we're not going to probably get to the window with either team. Thank you guys for hanging out with us each and every Wednesday. Make sure you head over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Check out the NFL edition of Bet On It from Marco, Ralph, VR, and myself. We'll see you guys next week. Let's bet on it.